Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Encounter 341 or 341. Well, you could probably just hear there, I've caught my first sore throat of the year. I feel completely fine aside from that, a little tired. So it's either a localized bug or something else has been causing it. I don't know what. So if you think that I sound more gruff or noir-like in this episode, or my voice cracks like it did there, it's that's the reason why. It's not puberty. That's the reason why. So we actually have a fairly big show today. We have 3 games to talk about, actually, and we have a state of play that I want to briefly get into. So joining me today are Audra.
Hello.
And Patrick.
Hey, everyone.
All right, let's get right into this. I don't think either one of you got a chance to watch, but I think you managed to see some of the announcements, and I will bring them up. So we're not going to talk about the whole show here. We're just going to talk about things that are interesting for us specifically. Oh, by the way, if you hear some clicking, you hopefully won't. I have a lozenge in my mouth. So here we go. So the first thing that was a real interest to us was Ghost of Yotai Legends, which appears to be a piece of DLC that makes it basically a co-op game. I haven't played Ghost of Yotai. I know that a lot of people really, really like it, but it's within our coverage. It's just not something that's really for me, I suppose.
Yeah, it was. It's a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, right? And then, is it Yotai or Yotei?
Is it Yotei?
It might be Yotei. I can't remember, but that one, the second Ghosts game, that came out in 2025, and now they've announced this DLC for it.
Yeah, it's free and it's coming out in about a month.
Free DLC.
I respect free DLC. That's the way to do it.
I agree. There are some other interesting games here that aren't in our coverage. I have to admit, when I first saw it years ago, when the trailer for Pragmatic came out, I was like, whatever. Every time I see it, I like it more and more. It's not within our coverage. They do bleed numbers in it, though. They do. Otherwise, it's not really in our coverage. Resident Evil Requiem is looking real good, looking super interesting. In our first surprise announcement of the day, we got a remaster of Legacy of Kain Defiance, the old Legacy of Kain games. And I believe, unless I missed my guess, according to IGN, I don't remember seeing it in the actual state of play, but there is a 2D pixel art style game. It seems to be very popular for established properties at the moment, also coming out, called Legacy of Kain Ascendance. And which it's first new game in the franchise since 2003.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a retro pixel art side-scroller platform, but I don't know whether or not it's going to be a Metroidvania. I mean, hopefully it's a Metroidvania. That would just make sense to me, but you never know. Moving on, we had something I got excited about, not in our coverage, Control Resonant. I love Control. I love Remedy, so I'm pretty excited about this. Yeah,
I like Remedy games as well. I'm hoping that's a good game.
I do too. I'm very curious how they're going to redeem Dylan, the main character in this was a character in Control. I'm very curious how they're going to redeem him after the events of Control. We have a few interesting games here. Crimson Moon and Beast of Reincarnation both look to be very Souls-esque inspired, and Beast of Reincarnation is from Game Freak, and it looks to be their first game in a long time that's not Pokemon.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't see that. A non-Pokemon game from Game Freak. How about that?
Yeah, I imagine that everyone there is probably very excited to work on this. Just people who've been dying of thirst, finally getting a glass of water. So hopefully that's good. We got confirmation that Meme of the Hollower has now moved to spring of 2026, so we will be getting it in a few months, which is really exciting. The weirdest announcement of the state of play was actually called Project Windless, and it's an open world RPG, and it's Montreal. So I mean, it's Canadian. I'm happy about that because I like everything Canadian right now. Because nationalism, I guess.
I like everything Canadian, and I'm not even Canadian. So
yeah, we've been getting some good press lately. I think that the thing that most people are excited about more than anything else, at least, okay, when I say most people, I'm referring to everyone here, is Castlevania Belmont's Curse, which is a brand new 2D Castlevania game. It looks to be a Metroidvania. They had a map you could travel around. It looks disturbingly like Bloodstained. It looks disturbingly like Bloodstained, which is really funny to me.
That is rather amusing.
Yeah, the art style looks a lot like Bloodstained, and I'm like, I guess.
Well, I'm curious about how many people from the Bloodstained team they might have pulled over to work on this game, because it's like, why wouldn't you? It's the obvious spiritual successor, from Iga, the Igavania thing.
Well, an interesting thing is that apparently the developer on it, Motion Twin, is the developer of Dead Cells, which, if everyone recalls, I think it was last year, they had
that Castlevania DLC for Dead Cells.
Yeah, so there's some
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I imagine that's probably how either the door got opened or that was like a little present to them to see what they could do. But yeah, so that's coming out, and I'm really excited for it because it's a brand new Castlevania game. There are a few other little things here that are coming out that really made me go, ooh. I imagine for most people who are fans of it, the God of War trilogy remake is a great announcement. It's 1, 2, 3, and I imagine that they'll probably be incorporating much more of the RPG-esque elements into the game that have been in the more recent God of Wars. And we had a big surprise, which is a shadow drop of God of War Sons of Sparta, which is a Metroidvania, apparently. However, we do not know whether or not it is a Metroidvania within our coverage. Whenever a Metroidvania is announced, it's always tricky because we cover the Castlevania kind of Metroidvania, but not necessarily the Metroid style of Metroidvania. So it got shadow dropped today, so it won't take long to figure out whether or not it's within our coverage. I hope it is because it looks really cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I saw those God of War announcements. I didn't realize one of them was a Metroidvania. Yeah, I am curious about it. There have been a lot of surprising games over the years that have, like, they come from an existing IP and then they do a game in this style. Like, I think, like, isn't there like a Blaze Blue one that just came out recently? And then there was a Record of Lodoss War one a few years ago.
Oh, yes. Deedlit Adventures in Wonderland, or
there's
Deedlit
so
Adventures
many...
in Wonderland, something like that.
And then, like, isn't there like a Pac-Man one in the works?
Yes, there is. Maybe it's already out. I can't remember. It's like a dark Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Reboot. Yeah,
it's like, it's so weird that these franchises, these IPs are just like, everyone kind of wants to dip their toes. Cause I mean, it is a very, if you can do it well, I mean, we have a glut of them in the market, but if you do a game well in this genre, it can be quite fun. And I think I did play the Deedlit one, the Lodoss one, and I did enjoy it quite a bit.
I need to. I love Record of Lodoss War, so
yeah,
I should. Yeah.
It got released last year. Shadow Labyrinth. Shadow Labyrinth, part of the Pac-Man series. What a strange sentence. You play as Swordsman number 8, who is exploring interconnected maze-like environments while fighting against consuming enemies, guided by a mysterious companion known as Puck, which that's really funny. But it definitely wasn't within our coverage, so we didn't cover it. But I remember at the time being like, this is pretty funny. Also, Project Windless, the main character is apparently a giant chicken who kind of looks a lot like Foghorn Leghorn, the Looney Tunes character, which I just think is really funny.
Well, I said, boy.
Yep. He's a dual wielding warrior chicken.
I love that.
I'm just imagining the episode where he spanks the dog like crazy. Wow, that sounded dirty. No, I mean literally spanks the dog like crazy. Anyway,
sure, John.
It was a good state of play for RPG fan and for RPG fans. A lot of interesting stuff for us, and a lot of interesting stuff. Period. State of plays have been great lately. Like, they've really learned their lessons from Nintendo, and now I think they're pretty much on the same level. Whenever there's a state of play or a direct, you're like, okay, this is more than likely going to be a good show. Yeah,
I've been pretty pleased. I'd say in the last year, it's been getting better and better. Of course, there are things that everyone has their bingo card of things that they know will never happen, but they keep wanting it anyway. I'm just sitting here waiting for, the offline version of Nier Reincarnation, like they did with Octopath Zero.
Oh, and they're doing that Another Eden.
Oh, well, they are doing it with Another Eden, so maybe that one might be more realistic than the other ones on my wish list. Like a complete Breath of Fire 1-5 collection or something like that.
I'm sure Capcom will put them in a package eventually. They're running out of games to do so.
It's true. And they did. Well, I don't know how it happened, but somehow just Breath of Fire 4 landed on GOG, which was weird to me. It's like, if you can do PS1 games, do 3 and 4. They're both great.
I mean, they've run out of every Mega Man game has in existence, I think, except for like the brand new ones are in collections.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I finished something really cool last night, which has nothing to do with our coverage, but I just wanted to mention it. It's called Gravity Circuit. It's a Mega Man-like, I guess. It's very much a spin on Mega Man, but with modern mechanics. And if you're looking for a Mega Man game, check it out, Gravity Circuit. It came out a few years ago. It got very little press, which is stunning because it's insanely good. Really, really enjoyable game.
I think I own the soundtrack to that, like a digital soundtrack for that, and I like the music.
It does. The music is very Mega Man-esque.
Very Mega Man. Yep.
Which is a very good thing. I love a good Mega Man. A Mega Man like 20XDX and 30XDX are two other ones that are just terrific. Mm-hmm. Anyway, well, there was a lot introduced this week in the State of Play that frankly is really, really interesting. But we're here today to talk about two technically old games, though one is much, much, much older than the other. The first game is the newer game, and it is Ys 10 Proud Nordics. I'd say this is an interesting one. Many people probably know the history of the Ys series. I think I actually had talked about Ys 10 Nordics last year on the show. It started in 1987. It was an action RPG franchise, and really interesting franchise. The combat was somewhat simple. You literally just ran into enemies. It was like an action RPG by way of bumper cars. And each numbered entry is featured as a chapter of the continuing travels of Adol, the main character, who is a red-headed adventurer. And the games, although they do carry that character forward and it's the same world, each game is an isolated standalone tale. And Ys 10 was they basically advanced the franchise with it. There were two central characters instead of a full party. There was a naval exploration component, and also they did something that I guess the Persona games do, which is they released a more complete version after the release. And that's what we have right here. Ys 10 Proud Nordics is an enhanced edition that was originally released in Japan earlier this year. There's new story content, new areas, new gameplay systems, and it's basically positioned as the definitive edition. So yeah, Audra, can I ask you, before you jump into this game, do you have any personal experience with the Ys series up to this point?
I've played several of the Ys games, mostly from Ys 3, Oath of Felghana, the PSP port, through Ys Origin, Ys 9. I have Ys 7 and 6, and one day I'll play them.
You have some experience with the series.
Yes.
Did this game really advance the gameplay side of things? Like, did it really push it forward?
It did do some interesting things. It kind of very similar to the other games before, like Oath of Felghana, as opposed to like the party-based systems, because you only have the two characters as opposed to a handful of new ones that you kind of learn about. And it's a very interesting, you can switch between controlling both of them at the same time or just solo playing as one character, which was an interesting way to do it, because I kept actually accidentally at first just switching between the characters as opposed to like actually doing the duo fighting. It took me a while to get the hang of that because it's like one button that you could just press. I
mentioned that Adol is the main character pretty much every game. Who's the other main character in this?
She is a Norman Viking, which is, the Normans are basically Vikings essentially. Mm-hmm. She's they call her the pirate princess Karja, and she's the daughter of a berserker named Grimson. And basically her and Adol get stuck together after they end up meeting. At one point they get like a magic, like almost chain hooks them together. So they're stuck that way. They can't figure out how to fix it. And then all this stuff starts happening, like the town that they're in gets attacked. And so then Adol wants to go on a quest to save the villagers, and it turns into this thing where they're fighting like the Grieger, who are like the Undying Fleet, which only they have the ability to kill because they have special abilities called mana. And it's quite interesting. Like, as you go through the game, you get different new items that allow you to access different mana abilities. Like at first you have a mana strain, which basically allows you to like swing to new areas, and you actually can upgrade it later, so you can actually use it to pull out like environmental graphic hiccups, that you can actually like move a boulder or create a stair.
A slight Metroidvania style thing.
Yeah. And that's pretty interesting. You have like even like a one where it's like you're surfing, but like speed surfing on the water. And they have like a really interesting one chasing where it's a whale is trying to attack them. And so you have to just go through like surfing and then jumping through the air. And it was a really fun action sequence, like chase sequence.
Well, the fact that she's a pirate princess probably is a good conceit for the fact that a lot of this game happens at sea on a ship.
Yes.
I know there are only 2 playable characters when they're in combat and stuff like that, but as I understand it, crew members can join the ship, can join the voyage. Is that interesting? Basically, I want to know, is the ship basically a Suikoden headquarters?
Pretty much, actually. It reminded me quite often of actually Suikoden 4, which was a more naval-based Suikoden game where you had your headquarters was a ship. And it's kind of a similar concept. It's people, the first town that you run into that got attacked, you actually end up rescuing the townspeople as you go along the game. Sometimes optionally, and then sometimes during mandatory main story segments. And then they all join the crew, and like it helps level up the ship so that you get like more, like you get shops on the ship, and then you even like it shores up like your defenses, that you raise like the, I don't want to say health of the ship, but basically the HP status.
The toughness of the ship.
And that actually, I found it pretty interesting. They kind of do it. Ys 9 had a base system, which I believe was also in Ys 8, where you had like people that you recruited along the town that like bolstered your defenses when you were in these strategic battles. And it's sort of the same thing, but on a boat. So you get like different abilities thanks to whoever you've recruited. They have like different skills that will bolster statuses as you're fighting, which was, I thought it was actually neat. I definitely think it was a much better naval combat system than Suikoden 4.
I mean, I don't think you're going to get a lot of arguments about that, as I understand it.
I do think sometimes it maybe overstayed its welcome a little bit. Because you have to, every time you want to go fast on the ship, you have to like recharge your gauge for it. Mm-hmm. And it drains very quickly. So then you're just stuck drifting for a while. And then you have to, and then you replenish it and you can go again. But other than that, I mean, I found it fun to just kind of investigate different areas and find maps, like treasure and stuff. I mean, it definitely fits the whole Adel having a sense of adventure. And I do feel like the game actually really excellently captures that sense of like wonder and discovery.
That's an important aspect, I would imagine, of a game that involves a ship and you traveling around. I want to ask about ship combat, but before I do that, I wanted to ask about combat just between the 2 characters. So Adol is, I mean, historically, very clearly swordsman in the Grand Link tradition.
Yes.
And how does the combat vary between the 2 of them?
It actually doesn't vary as much as I thought it would initially.
Oh.
I do think Adel actually is more the, he's arguably the weaker character. He's faster, but he has lowered defense and offense power. Whereas Karja, she wields an axe and she is pretty much more like, yeah. So she's slower, but she does more damage. But like you can actually level them up and use items to raise their stats and stuff. So eventually, and you get like a skill tree that you can like strengthen stats on as you go. So I mean, it kind of becomes eventually more negligible, I guess. But in the beginning, I preferred fighting as Adel just because I like speedier characters.
But I do too.
Yeah.
I think that from what I've read, the combat here tends to emphasize standing your ground and defending rather than constantly dodging around like it's a Souls game.
Yes.
Which I imagine is a spiritual tip of the hat to the original ramming into enemies to damage them rather than dodge them. Like this game does encourage you to stand your ground and get hit and you hit them back. Does that create like a kind of a real back and forth between you and the enemy?
It does. You actually get the chance, if you correctly guard using both the duo mode guarding, you can even sometimes counter an attack. Like they give you a quick time event button press, and then you can like devastate knock them way down on health with it. So, I mean, it's I have fun with it. I found the battles to be really interesting. Like you have the obligatory sandworm battle, and that ended up being like kind of, when do you run from the poison that it's emitting? When do you actually get around to hitting it? It's challenging, but fun, and not as wanting to throw something against a wall like how certain Souls-likes can be.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Now that we've gotten there, let's talk about ship combat for a second. So how does it differ comparing to fighting on foot?
Basically, you're actually in charge of the ship, and you outfit it with ammunition, basically, and you can shore up defenses and stuff to make it survive fights more. And it's pretty much you have to line up your ship with the enemy ships and just hope that you can kill them quicker. So it actually isn't bad, but you kind of get the gist of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's something about ships combat that never quite lands for me, unless the game is like specifically about naval combat. It always feels like a afterthought to whatever the main combat system is in the game. I felt that way about Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii last year.
And there are fortresses that you have to take over where you do like a naval battle first, and then you like invade them directly, and that goes back to regular combat. And I do admit it's probably telling that they give you can actually get items that lets you skip right to the invasion part of the plan.
The game itself, I think it looks great. It looks. I've seen Ys games before. This one looks like an upper level one. How do you find the visuals?
I like them for the most part. I do think sometimes the areas could be a bit just lacking in terms of variety.
Samey.
Yeah, samey. And I do feel like when you get in action RPGs, you hit something and you get like items from it. Mm-hmm. I do almost feel like there was like a cheap quality, like I don't want to say like gacha quality to like the art that they used for the items that you got. It doesn't look as well as, it doesn't mesh as well with like the game graphics. It looks very almost cheap comparatively.
And I'm hoping that the music isn't quite as samey as the graphics.
Oh no, the music is good.
That's lovely to hear.
Yes. It is Falcom music, so.
Yeah, so it's real solid. Mm-hmm. I think that it's very curious, the existence of this game, as I mentioned off the top. I know that you didn't play the original, but if you had to ask, if someone asked you which one should they buy, clearly Proud Nordics is the choice, right?
Proud Nordics. I think the extra content alone is probably worth the purchase. Yeah. I don't know if I'd say it's worth a double dip. Especially because a lot of the new content, it ends up getting added in at like chapter 5.
It's DLC.
It's pretty, yeah. I mean, they splice it up so that you have to like advance in the main story to open up sections of it as you go. So it's not, I guess they didn't want to have it be like one giant expansion that you could just go at for, one and done. But other than that, it's basically DLC.
It's freaking DLC. So get this, you're getting the complete package.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Audra, for playing Proud Nordics. I still am a little weirded out that they released it last year, technically as Nordics, and now it's called Proud Nordics. I don't know. It bugs me enough when the Persona series does it, but the Persona series has the decency to like wait a few years between their definitive edition and the original. But this feels almost, it looks almost like this is the game they should have released last year, if that makes sense.
Yes, probably.
They were so proud of the upgrades, they had to push that Proud Nordics out right away. I do like the name. I do like going from Nordics to Proud Nordics, but I agree that the rush was rough, especially for anyone who went and played the original Nordics originally. Then it's just like, who's going to replay it that quickly? That's the only problem, I think.
Yeah, it's a weird position to put fans in.
Yeah,
but if you haven't played it yet, clearly this is the edition to get. So that's coming out next week. It's been out in Japan since, like I mentioned earlier, it's coming out. It came out in Japan in July of last year. So hopefully in a perfect world, hopefully it doesn't set a trend that when 11 eventually comes out, they'll do the same thing. Okay, well, let's move on now to something that I would argue is extremely unexpected, and that is a brand new Game Boy Color game. Technically not brand new. It's a really interesting story. The game is called Infinity. It was developed by Athenix Studio, I think. They started developing it. It was in 1991.
1999.
Oh, 1999. 1991. Jesus. In 1999, and it was canceled in 2001, presumably because the industry was moving on and the Game Boy Advance was coming out. And I don't think, looking at the screenshots, this is not the kind of game that could have just ported straight over to the Game Boy Advance. It looks like an NES game. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Anyway, this has basically been sitting in a drawer for 20 years. And it was revived via Kickstarter campaign in 2021 by Incube8 Games. And they took it. It's a 4 megabyte tactical RPG cartridge. It runs on the Game Boy Color. If you have a Game Boy Color, it will run. It is a brand new Game Boy Color game. Also has a extensive history with its soundtrack, which we will be talking a little bit about later. So, Patrick, you played it. You both reviewed this and the soundtrack. I just want to ask you, how did you play it? Did you play it on hardware or did you play a ROM?
I did play a ROM. They provided a ROM. They were willing to provide a cartridge for reviewable. I did not have a GBC or GBA anywhere on hand. I would have had to go digging, but they did offer, which was cool. If you go to their website to buy the game, to buy it with the physical cartridge is it's not cheap. I think it might be like $60 or $70. Whereas the sort of digital collection, which gets you the ROM file directly, is only like $20. And I think my favorite thing about it is the experience is very organic, even if you only get the digital version. For example, with the digital version, you get an instruction manual in PDF form. Now, in the physical edition, they obviously printed it, and I've seen the prints. It's glossy, it's beautiful. It feels like, the old instruction manuals you would get with the Game Boy game. It fits in a Game Boy Color sized box. I mean, they really did this thing upright. And the instruction manual has a lot of information in it that you won't get via like in-game tutorial. Like, you want to understand how to navigate like the menus in combat. Like, you're gonna want to read this thing. There's sort of background biographies and summaries on the main characters that has some lore and details that you will not pick up, and it's just not in the game. So like, I missed the days where like reading the instruction manual was like part of the experience. It was like you were, if you played the game without reading the instruction booklet, you were setting yourself back. Like, and I write about this a lot in my review of the game, but I can't stop thinking about sort of the top tier Game Boy RPGs, which were the Saga trilogy, the Final Fantasy Legend trilogy.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
As well as Final Fantasy Adventure, which is the first game in the Mana series. And then also like the first gen Pokemon games. Like, these are sort of the big Game Boy RPGs.
I have to admit, the Squaresoft's or maybe Nintendo's strategy of slapping the Final Fantasy name on games that are not Final Fantasy for the Game Boy always amused me, because at this stage of the game, Final Fantasy wasn't even like a massive thing yet. They're like, who are you trying to draw? You could have maybe started a brand new series, but instead you slapped on a name that had nothing to do with the actual game. Weird.
Yeah, I think it might have helped with brand recognition of the name Final Fantasy if they were dominating Nintendo, Game Boy, and Super Nintendo with this same name. It might have helped Square build the brand of Final Fantasy rather than try to introduce 3 or 4 sort of series titles. So I can't hold them at fault for that. I mean, I kind of want to, but I mean, I think back to like 1991 and I'm like, nah, it's whatever.
Mm-hmm. They didn't know what they were doing back then.
None of us knew, right? Mm-hmm. I was a kid and I think back and I'm like, I didn't know what they were doing, but they didn't know either, so it's okay. But what I will say is, you know, when I think about playing those games, having that instruction manual was extremely helpful. Understanding like what status effects meant or did, you know, what a character's sort of expected specialty was in battle, like that kind of stuff's really helpful. So I think, you know, amazing instruction manual. The whole final product is just really sleek. Now the game itself is relatively simple though. What makes it different from pretty much anything else I've ever played on that early of a handheld is that the combat is it's random encounters, but it's not a simple turn-based like Final Fantasy Legend games or really Final Fantasy or like the Dragon Warrior
menu-based combat, turn.
Yeah, it's actually a tactical RPG with a hexagonal grid, which the earliest thing I can remember to do that was Wild Arms 4. I'm sure there were games before it that did, but...
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking when you said that.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. And to make that work on such a small screen with so few pixels, they don't draw the boundaries of the hexagons. You just get a sense for where they are sort of organically. And it's kind of amazing how well it works. And I actually went back and they actually... they offer this with the digital purchase and they offered it to reviewers. You can play the game at sort of 3 different stages. There's the super incomplete state that I was in like 2002. And then there was in 2016, there was just sort of a revival to try and get the game out as a free ROM. And they didn't quite finish it, but they made it playable to about near the end. And then the script was really lacking, but like it was playable. And then you have the now final version with like all the bells and whistles are there, and there's actually an ending. And the combat mechanics are balanced and the difficulty levels make sense. That's another thing. The game has difficulty levels. You can do easy, normal, or hard, and you can switch at any time. And having that in like a tactical RPG in a Game Boy Color game, like all of that just seems insane to me that they built all of that into such a tiny file size. I mean, it really is a work of art just in how much they did with so little.
It's really interesting that there are, I don't want to say a rash because there's only been 2 of them that I can think of, but basically handheld games that were like stuck in a drawer and left for 20 years and then were pulled out and someone being like, this is good. We should finish this because last year, Way Forward pulled out their first Shanti sequel, Shanti Advanced Risky Revolution, and they finished it and they released it. It's again just like this. It's on an actual Game Boy Advanced card in this case, but back then they didn't get great sales with the original Shanti for the Game Boy Color, which is weird because it's freaking awesome. And it wasn't until the DSi was released that they actually released a full sequel, Shanti's Risky's Revenge. So I love the idea that there are these almost complete games just sitting out there, and it's taking either people who worked on them 20 years ago or fans, and they're finding them and they're finishing them. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think another one that was similar, though it's older and it's digital only, was You remember when they put Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic?
Yeah, exactly.
That was really cool that was this sort of half-finished project, and then they went ahead and built it up enough that it was a full game, and that was sort of the draw to buy the Classic, which I did buy it for that reason.
That's a good reason to buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, if I recall correctly, remembering prices of SNES games when I was a child, the SNES Mini wasn't actually that much more expensive than the game would have been.
No, I think it was $100, and back then, like, they were selling $70 for a cartridge. So, yeah, it's about the same price, and then you got 20 other games with it.
If you ask me, that's a bargain right there.
Well, the number one reason, or not, I mean, Star Fox 2 was why I bought the thing, but I had never played Earthbound, and that's what I played Earthbound on. I downloaded the first Mother Earthbound Beginnings on my Wii U. I think that's what it was on, and I played that first, and then I was like, oh, I should play Earthbound, and then the SNES Classic Mini thing came out, and I was just like, oh, I can finally play Earthbound, and I did. And so that was that alone made it worth it. And then, of course, I played a bunch of other games that I've, classics and other RPGs that I've played before. But if you give me a chance to play Secret of Mana again, I'm going to. Like, I love that game so much. Anyway, back to Infinity. One of the other technical things about it that I found was very impressive was I am shocked by how good its soundtrack is. I'm the music guy over here at RPG Fan. I'm not the only one, but it's what I've been known for. And, when you think about the story of this game, this game is about as old as RPG Fan is. Our site started in 98. They started development on this game in 99. And it's clear to me that the main composer, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Eric Hatch, Hache. He knows his stuff. He knows how to write music for like a fantasy RPG, but there was no point in the soundtrack where I was like, oh, well, you're cribbing Uematsu here or Mitsuda there. He really has his own voice, but then the sound engineer that got it down to chiptune what a Game Boy Color can do, that individual's name is Matthew Valente, and he deserves just as much praise because the way this thing sounds, I mean, they really took advantage of everything. The channels are being used to max capacity. They're using oscillation to make it sound like 3-note chords are being played all at once when they're actually just being changed up very quickly across 2 channels instead of 3. So you have an extra channel to play a melody against a 3-note chord. Like that is.
Yeah, remind me. The Game Boy Color had 3 channels, right?
It has 3 channels for music, a 4th channel for sound effects. So there's sort of a noise track that you can make for like percussion in music too. But it's also, you don't want to use it for percussion if you're also going to, if the song can play during any portion where a sound effect could occur, because then it'll cut into it. So whether or not you use the percussion or the effects track for music was kind of, you had to be judicious about it. Like you'll notice like in Final Fantasy 1, the percussion track never gets used in the music, but then starting in 2, they do, but they're very careful about it. They start using it in the battle themes exclusively. But yeah, the NES and the Game Boy had almost identical sound chips. The one difference is that the NES was mono aural, so just one track. But the Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance were all stereo. So if you put on headphones, anyone who wanted to do any kind of, you're hearing it just in the left or just in the right, or you're panning from left to right, any of the effects that you can do with a stereo sound setup, you technically could program in. Most composers didn't. But in this game, they do, and they do it so well. I mean, I wore headphones while I played much of this just to kind of really get the max experience. And chiptunes with panning and fading is just so smart. And there's just so much about the sound design that I am super impressed by. And I was given access again to some of the older tracks. Here's what we published in 02. Here's what we published in 16. They did it with the soundtrack, just like the ROM of the game itself. And some of it had come along very well by 2016, but the amount of polish they put in this end product, I mean, it's a major difference. So I say that so because if anyone did play around with the sort of freely distributed ROM from 2016 that the original Phoenix team put out, just to be like, hey, this is the thing we almost got done. What do you think? It's a cool experience, but like you want to play like a real game start to finish. Like you really want to check out this product.
I think it's really, really interesting that they were able to make use of that. I wonder whether or not, do you know with the original soundtrack, like let's say the one that came with the 2001 ROM, did that have stereo sound effects, or did it stereo sound, or did they do that in future games?
They incorporated the stereo in some of it, but it was really rudimentary. It was kind of a flip back and forth. I don't think they had figured out how to do a smooth pan. And honestly, I don't know how to do it. Like if someone gave me like the software to do it, I mean, I know chiptune artists do it all the time now. And I think that's the thing. This is what they have with the benefit of hindsight, is chiptune artists who actually compose on, what is the software, the LSD software that was designed to actually play off of real Game Boys. And there's like chiptune artists that go to MagFest and just like hook up 2 Game Boys and hit play, and you're like at this rave. People learned how to push the hardware beyond what anyone was doing. So in 01, it was like, that's nice. But like I can't remember how much was in 2016, but definitely in the final product, they're doing things that was always technically doable on the Game Boy, but because no one had ever pioneered it, it wasn't happening. And now that people figured it out in sort of the chiptune world, they were able to implement it and make some really cool music. It's
fascinating to me just how over the years, musicians and people have managed to squeeze stuff out of sound chips, graphics, like things that would be previously thought impossible on many of these ancient consoles, like literally squeezing every last bit out of them in a way that I imagine back in 2001 or 1999, they would have been like, we can't do that. Can we? Is that even possible? That's neat to me.
Yeah, I think, if you could go back in time and show this off, people would be impressed. Visually, I will say that visually, you wouldn't think it based on the stills, because at the end of the day, you are working with this like 256 by something else pixel window that's like really small. And so there's only so much you can do in terms of the stills. But the fluidity of some of the animation and some of the animation effects, especially in combat, I was pretty impressed by them as well. I mean, again, when I compare them to other things that existed on GB and GBC, like it really does stand out as like more fluid, more borders on something that I would think, oh, you would need a GBA to pull that off, or honestly, like you would need a Game Gear, because for those who don't know, like the Game Gear's technical specs like beat the pants off of a Game Boy Color. That's also why its batteries would run out in 10 minutes.
You can only play it for like a half hour though.
Yeah, right. And that's why there's also so few games on it. It's barely a handheld. You needed to keep it plugged in.
I mean, this thing was released at the very end of the Game Boy Color's life cycle, and which was also the very end of the original Game Boy's life cycle too then. So every trick that they knew at that point they could put in this game. Right.
They were working with the benefit of hindsight in a lot of ways. And that includes the basics. Again, for people who look at the screenshots, like the little character sprites look exactly like something you would expect from like the Final Fantasy Legend games. Or even like some of the world map stuff kind of feels like take Pokemon but make it medieval, and here we are.
Yeah, the tile sets look very, very Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest esque.
Yeah, they're pretty basic in that sense, and I think intentionally so, because I think what makes the game good are the animations, the music, the combat system, which again really impresses me, and it is a fun game to play. It gets a little samey in the middle, but the game's relatively short, so I feel like it doesn't overstay its welcome. It took me about 10 hours to beat the game, and there are optional side quests that I did not pursue on my first playthrough that I knew existed. So it's like there's that. And then the other thing that and this is where I'm going to get into trouble with somebody. I think that the original dev team and the new team that finished it off at Incube8, I think they're very proud of the story. And people can read my review. I think they had a really cool concept. I think I think they needed someone else to help with the dialogue. The dialogue is not boring in the sense that like it's not dry or stiff. It's very emotive. The problem for me is that I pretty much hate every character. The main character, Connor, and everyone else at Ginger Party is just very unlikable. They're all just very bitter and cynical, and it never plays as humorous. And I'm never sure if they're ever trying to play it as humorous or if it's just like, oh, we all just hate everything in the world. And it's like, then why are you trying to save it? Like, what's the point? And like, there's reasons for it. And this isn't really a spoiler because it's right away. The main character, Connor, you find out his wife died, and his wife's death has something to do with the kingdom he serves being crappy and weird and involved in like necromancy stuff. So he hates the king, even though he also serves the king. I feel like if you're going to try and go that route, the problem is you need to say a lot more to help me understand why this guy is speaking the way he is towards other people. And you don't get that, even with the help of the instruction books, sort of backstory stuff. It's not enough. It's just like, why are you being such a jerk all the time to everyone? Even like there's one female character that joins your party, and she's a mage, and she's nice, and she's also like cleric style mage because she's like devout and believes in God and all this stuff. And he's just mean to her, and she just like goes along and helps him the whole way. And at some point I was like, there's almost something problematic in like a gendered way here, that like all the guys are jerks. And then there's just like one nice person who also just so happens to be a woman.
So the gender politics are, 25 years old as well, really.
Yes and no. There's this other piece of it that she's clearly like the most talented mage, and there's sort of like a mage's guild that meets in this tower, and she's clearly like eligible and should be like the next like head mage or archmage. And the reason she's not is because she's a woman, and it's always been the rule that only men can be in charge, and like she breaks that rule. So like in that sense, they're like, we're being progressive. But in terms of writing, they really kind of kept her in her place as a her, if you get what I'm saying.
I think I do. And it's weird. If you're going to introduce a character who is that cynical about the world, I'm not trying to tell them how to write it, but generally speaking, you want the story to reveal to them that the world is not as bad as they initially thought, and essentially soften throughout to open themselves up to other new relationships and friends. And
you want to squall.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, actually, I don't want to spoil too much. In some ways, it's I don't know what I should say. It's kind of okay that he doesn't have too much growth. I think the problem is they don't really explore the sorrow that's behind the pain that causes him to be so brusque and cruel to others. And then there's two or three other playable characters that join the party who are also kind of lame in their own way. Like there's like a thief bandit character who's never a permanent member, but he's also the dude with the ship. So when you start traveling continents, you need him. And I think they wanted him to be like a lovable scamp kind of rogue, but he's just kind of another awful human being. Like he's opportunistic in the worst of ways. And I don't think they thought that that's how they designed them, but that's how I read it. And so, yeah, I really didn't like most of the characters in this game, but the stuff that they're doing with the world overall, and then some of the villain characters and some of the like crazy stuff that happens in the world and some of the time alteration stuff, they have some great concepts for fantasy in there, and they actually execute them well. But the characters I'm running along with, the only one that I can stand is the woman who's just a decent human being.
So it sounds like they have a really, really great scenario, but the moment-to-moment writing and the character writing just isn't there.
Yeah, I think it was fixable. That my feeling is Connor, his rival who joins the party eventually, Roland, a half werewolf kind of dude named Victor, and then Ryan the thief. Like all of them, you can keep their flaws, you can keep their sort of darker motivations, but not make them so one note, just mean. Like they just name call and are angry, and I'm just like, what is this?
They're just mean. That's too bad. That's too bad considering just how, I guess, forward thinking the game was in so many ways. Like, let's say it's 2001 and let's say it's 2000. Let's say they crunched
published
real
it by
hard.
2000. Yeah, that's what they would have had to do to get it on shelves, I think.
Yeah, they crunched real hard and they got it out on shelves at 2000. Do you think that we would be having a retro encounter episode today talking about this game?
I think we could. I think it would have either sold well enough or stood out as worthwhile for people who played RPGs. I think it would have been better remembered than a lot of other handheld titles, including the GBA and the DS, which had, exponentially more RPGs, and especially like the GBA had strategy RPGs that, at least in America, we never got on GBC. In Japan, they had, I think they had at least ports of the NES Fire Emblem games. And then they would have had the earliest Super Robot Wars games were Game Boy. So they at least had some tactical kind of stuff going on. But in America, we got like, FFT Advance and Tactical Knights of Lotus, and the earliest Fire Emblem titles that we ever got were GBA. And so like just the fact that it was a tactical RPG built into a Game Boy Color game, I think it would have made waves with that alone.
I think you're right.
And I think, I was really hard on the dialogue, and I think, because of the year we're in, I'm comfortable doing that. But if you compared the script of this game to, the script's hand localizations of even something like Link's Awakening as it originally released, like Link's Awakening is fine. It's inoffensive, but like, I'm not like psyched by the characters. There's not a lot that delights me. There's not a lot that's written,
Yeah, I would say that the more written JRPGs for the console would have been something like Lufia Legend Returns, or even the Dragon Quest III remake.
Yeah, and I think if I compared like the Dragon Warrior 3 GBC to Infinity, I think Infinity still has a more rich story. There's more interesting things going on, and I love Dragon Quest 3 for the record. I think Infinity has a more, I think, again, the scenario is really brilliant. I really do.
Yeah, but there's also like an 11-year difference between the development of the two games, really.
Correct. DQ3 is 1990. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. But that being said, the dialogue in like the Game Boy Color Dragon Quest 3, it's like, there was, again, nothing offensive. I think some people would have been impressed with the dialogue for being edgy back then. I think people back then would have read it and been like, oh man, these heroes are cool. They're like anti-hero. They're tough. And I read it now and I'm like, this is lame. I don't like you. I don't want you to succeed.
I think you would call them extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah. So it's hard to say. But I think you're right. I mean, I really appreciate you posing the question. Had this game come out, would it be the kind of game we remember in the library as worthwhile, worth revisiting 25 years later? And I think the answer is yes. And I think people should play it. I think it's a very good game.
Cool. Well, I'm delighted that you got an opportunity to play it, and I'm just delighted it came out. I think I might play it at some point. I've really been on a kick with games lately. I've been trying to get through as many as I can because I couldn't really play any last year.
Yeah,
so I've been trying to make up for lost time.
I think you'll enjoy it, and I will also just really quick add this. In the world that we live in now, many of us we have a hard time stomaching random encounters. They have like Dragon Quest, they have the use this item and no random encounters for a while, and they're extremely inexpensive at shops. Stock up to 99, and then basically, random encounters are optional. If you want to level grind, you can. Otherwise, forget about it. And that alone, also, I think that's a real make or break for me. If I had been forced through random encounters throughout that game, I would have been very frustrated.
Well, that's actually a really nice quality of life feature. Like, there's a lot about this game that sounds really forward looking, and that's interesting. God, it's real such a shame that it didn't get released when it should have.
Well, it's a very neat digital preservation.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing. I mean, and that's why I appreciated what they did in 2016 as well, even though it was still incomplete. It was a lot closer to finished, and I think at the time they didn't know. I don't think there were any plans to crowdfund to get it done. So it was digital preservation in 2016 when the team put out that ROM. And now doing this, it really is like the preservation is quite strong. And I will add just really quick, I don't know what the timeline is going to be between when this episode goes up and when all the articles go up. I've actually written 3 articles for Infinity. I did a review of the game, did a review of the original soundtrack. I also did a review of the arranged soundtrack. They did an arranged album. Composer Yuzo Koshiro, who people may know from the first Ys game, we talked about Ys earlier, and ActRaiser and Etrian Odyssey. He composed a track for the game, and then also did a really good rock arrange that's on there. And then there's also some synth orchestra stuff on the arranged album. So my understanding is if you buy the digital set, the $20 one on their site, you get the game and I think the arranged album. I don't know if they've built in the OST yet, which is weird, but I think the arranged album comes with. So, respect to them. Anyone who takes the music seriously gets points in my book, obviously. So I really respect Incube8 Games for doing all they've done, and everyone who worked on this game over the years. Even if you're a writer and I mocked your dialogue, I still appreciate you doing the work. It's I couldn't make a better game if I wanted to. So I mean, who am I to say anything, right?
And if people want to, you have to go to the Incube8 Games. Oh, Incube8.
That's a pun. Yeah.
I think you have to go to the Incube8 Games to actually buy it at the moment, but you can, and they have like collector's editions where it comes with everything, comes with stickers and the soundtrack, and you can also buy the soundtrack by itself.
Right. They're doing that for a limited time. My understanding is that hopefully by the end of the year, they will also, because they want to try and get the Game Boy Color version out first and kind of get hype around that. But my understanding is the game will also be released in sort of a semi-enhanced version for Steam and Switch. So
this would be great on Switch.
Yeah, I think it would be a great release on Switch. And my understanding is the quote unquote enhanced mode will be you can play the game into an original GBC form, but then there's sort of a boosted form with a little extra content and looks a little nicer, sounds a little nicer, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'm really glad that it's good. I'm really glad that it kind of lived up to the expectations that were set. A new Game Boy Color game is coming out. That's awesome. Because, a lot of people remake games nowadays, and sometimes that's a mistake. So my review's up on the site of Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties, which is its companion title. Basically it's DLC for Yakuza Kiwami 3 that is just released with the game right day one. And if anyone listens to Random, and if you're listening to this episode, I assume you do, you know that I love Yakuza. I love Like a Dragon. It's one of my all-time favorite series. I gave Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties the lowest score I've ever given an RPG fan. I gave it a 53. I haven't played a game that made me this frustrated, angry, and at times actually disgusted as I was when I was playing Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties. The frustration and anger came about from Kiwami 3, and the anger and disgust came out through Dark Ties. So Yakuza 3 was the first title in the series which adopted the POV that the game has had since then, which is, Kiryu Center, 3D explorable worlds. Before this, it would switch between camera views as you explore the city. There was so much change in this game that really solidified aspects of the series that continues. But there were aspects of it that were a little bit old. I personally, the remaster came out in 2000. I reviewed it just before the pandemic hit. I have very fond memories of it. I do remember thinking that this feels like a step back from Yakuza Kiwami 2 for obvious reasons. But I really, really enjoyed it. I liked the story. There were some major problems with it. The whole sections with the orphanage, even though they were enjoyable in terms of the character development, they were just a massive grind. So a lot of people had some hope when Yakuza Kiwami 3 came out that they were going to fix a lot of these little problems. They were just going to modernize the game. And I suppose they did. They did fix the orphanage section, Yakuza Dad. There's a lot more engaging mini games and things in there. They replaced this horrible early version of the Cabaret Club. That's nothing like the one in Zero or Kiwami 2. They replaced it with a biker gang management sub-story, which is, lightweight, fine. It's pretty standard Yakuza sub-story. Weirdly, the game doesn't actually look that much better. In fact, there are times when Yakuza 3 actually looks better than this, even though it's in the Dragon engine. Like, there are some texture problems, blurry filters, really low poly NPC faces. Like, sometimes I looked at the NPCs and I was like, are you like doing an homage to the original Yakuza 3? Because I know you can do faces better than this because I've been playing Dragon engine games for a long time. And they changed the story in places, and they dropped some very, very good sub-stories. And on the whole, it's just a bad remake. It's just a bad remake. And the reasons why it's specifically bad are twofold. One is the casting. Yakuza 3 has a few really iconic characters. One of them being Rikia, who's your kind of sidekick. He's a rural Yakuza and from Okinawa, and he's just a doofus. He's just this goofy looking guy, total, gets to Kamurocho completely out of place. And he's just, everyone loves him who's played this game. He's gone down as a big favorite character in the series. They recast him and they cast, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he is kind of, for lack of a better word, pretty. He's kind of like it's a sexy Rikia, and the performance lacks the goofiness and charm of the original, and it really undercuts the emotional framework that holds the story up, being the relationship between these Kiryu and him. It really undercuts it, and it hurts it. It hurts it a lot. They also changed the actor who plays Rikia's boss. His boss originally was kind of like a balding, beard, like overweight, kind of over the hill sort of Yakuza. And now he's like this really good like guy in his early 50s with like he looks like a dream daddy. He really does. And you're just like, oh, that's weird. Thankfully, the performance that he gives, has much of the same heart as the original, so it doesn't bother me. The big problem, though, the really big problem, is the recasting of a NPC called Hamazaki. Now, Hamazaki originally is this 6'4", just massive brute of a man, and despite how he looks, he has this like malevolent intelligence and ambition behind all of that, and it's a really, really interesting character. And they've recast him. And Teruyuki Kagawa, and Kagawa is he's a sexual offender. He's a sex offender. He's been accused repeatedly of sexual assault and misconduct, and has admitted to it. And people were pretty pissed off about the casting. I certainly was. But here's the thing: he's bad. The actor is not good, but he's also just bad in the role. Like, he's really, really miscast. Like, this guy is like I said, Hamazaki in the original is 6'4", and just kind of a brute. And this guy is 5'7" and kind of wimpy looking and kind of downtrodden. He looks like a salaryman. And it's just like the character went from somewhat menacing to just being a non-factor at all. And it really undercut that part of the story. So the recasting hurt the story and the game tremendously. And they also changed the ending. I'm not going to get into spoilers there. If you know the ending of Yakuza 3, it's one of the most iconic endings in the game, and they changed it. And you can probably guess how they changed it if you know the game. So I was really disappointed with this remake. If it was just the remake, it would have gotten about a 65. I gave the original a 70, I think. It would have got a 65. But then there's Dark Ties. Dark Ties is genuinely one of the most sickening. I was disgusted playing it. You're playing as Mine, who is the antagonist of Yakuza 3. Everyone's, is one of the best Yakuza antagonists ever. And it tells the story of how he got involved with the Chojo clan. And in the game, you know that he is a sworn brother of Kanda, who is this blustery, angry grunt Yakuza who has been elevated above his station, and who has served time for sexual assault. In this little prequel they got going here, you see how they met. And they lean real heavy into the sexual assault side of Kanda's character. The first time you see him in this, he grabs a woman off the street, drags her behind a alleyway, throws her behind a truck, and starts pulling his pants down as she screams. Mine stops this, not because he's trying to save her, but because he wants to bribe Kanda. So he continuously throughout the game is sexually assaulting people. And in the main game, at one point, he's raping a woman and then he kills her, and while screaming Kiryu's name, like, yeah, I don't think that was in the original. I think it's a new addition to this. I might be wrong about that. I know he screams Kiryu's name as he's having sex with a woman. I don't think he kills her in the original. Anyway, the point is, in this game, you are this guy's sworn brother, and you get closer to him. You, in fact, are going out to karaoke with him. You're bowling with him. Like, he basically performs the role of Mine's Majima, except there's a big difference where this guy is a violent rapist, and he's a disgusting, horrible character. And he is one of the two protagonists of this story. And what's worse, the main management minigame of this game is called Kanda Damage Control, where he wants to become the head of the family. So you have to go out and rehabilitate his image to make everyone think he's this really, really good guy. So basically you're laundering his reputation. You're performing good deeds. You're basically doing public relations for a sex offender to get him into a position of power. And I've had enough of that since 2015. Certainly before that, but certainly since 2015. So Yakuza Kiwami 3 cast a sex offender in a major role, and Dark Ties, the main thrust of the story is literally rehabilitating the reputation of a sex offender. I feel like they've lost their goddamn minds. Whoever was if there was a central heart, a central moral center of the Yakuza Like a Dragon series, I don't know if it's still at RGG Studio. This game I gave it a 59. Deserves it. I was going to give it a 60, and I was so angry I took a point off because I was like, no, it's getting a 50 something. Yeah, this is all I'm going to say about it, because frankly speaking, I'm tired. I love this series so much, and playing this game, it doesn't just make me worried about the future of the series. It makes me scared for it. I don't know where they're going to take the next game. I don't know if they're going to do Kiwami 4 or if they're going to do Yakuza 9. But either way, if this is the direction they're heading, I don't know if I'm going to be here for it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Now, the one actual good thing, it's not a good thing, but the one thing about this is Kiwami 3 has actually done an amazing job of uniting right-wing fans and left-wing fans of Yakuza. Both of them are absolutely furious at RGG Studios and this game, obviously for different reasons. The right wing is furious about the recasting. The left wing is furious about the sexual offender being cast in it. And it has not been reviewed particularly well. Game came out today, the day of recording. We're recording this, and its reception thus far from audiences has been very negative. It's the lowest scored Yakuza game with actual critics on Metacritic since the original came out on the PS2. And I don't think it's going to get any better when user scores start coming in. Not that I even care about user scores on Metacritic, but yeah, people are pretty pissed off about this, and I certainly was as well. And that's all I'm going to say about this game. It was a crushing disappointment in almost every way. It's a crushing disappointment as a remake. It's a crushing disappointment as it's like a new chapter of the game. They did a remarkable job doing a character assassination of the character of Mine, who is considered to be one of the best characters in Yakuza history. They just destroy his character, both in Kiwami 3 and in Dark Ties. Yeah, pretty damn disgusted at RGG Studio right now.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, it sucks, but it happens sometimes. This is one of the reasons why you probably shouldn't get overly invested in a property, because you don't own it. And sometimes people get a hold of it and they either don't know what to do with it, or they go to creative directions that are a problem. Anyway, earlier I mentioned that the folks who are selling Infinity have a store, and so do we. If you're looking for a way to support us here at RPG Fan, we've opened up a store, and you can find it at www.rpgfan.com/shop. You can find all the usual things in there, like mugs, magnets, shirts, that kind of stuff. And we should have some new stuff later this year. Another way you can help us out is by checking out our past episodes of A Random Encounter. Last week, Audra, you were on to chat about Code Vein 2, and Hillary was also here to talk about Inkle's latest game, TR49. We also have 2 other podcasts here at the site. We have Retro Encounter, and last week was the first part of a 2-part episode focusing on Fire Emblem, The Blazing Blade. Fire Emblem is a series that I've actually never really gotten into, and I probably should, because I really enjoy the Advanced Wars series, and Intelligent System makes both. So yeah, there's also Rhythm Encounter, and our last episode was focused on some of the best gaming music of 2025. I edited this one. It was a very good episode with some fantastic music, and Patrick, you were on it too. If you would like to get in contact with us, you can fire us off a message at podcast@rpgfan.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future episode themes, questions you'd like me to ask the panel, fire it off to me. I'd love to share. And if you'd like to send me an email, you can do so at my email, jlogan@rpgfan.com. And you can also find me at johnologan.bluesky.social. I'm not the only person on here with a social media presence. Audra, where can we find you?
You can find me at email at audrab@rpgfan.com.
Lovely. And Patrick?
Oh, you can email me pgan@rpgfan.com. I'm also on Twitter and Blue Sky with the handle Gameadactyl, at game, the letter O, and dactyl.
Thank you very much. If you enjoy this podcast, please check it out on iTunes and give us a review. That would be fantastic. We'd love that. You can just give us some stars, or you could drop a couple of words down. That would be awesome as well. Again, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Audra and Patrick. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to play the games.
You're welcome. It's fun, usually.
Yeah. Usually it's fun. I'm glad it was this week. I'm glad you're enjoying this. And to everybody out there, whatever you're playing, have fun.